Music evolved primarily from American artists into a diverse mix of British and American artists. The most popular of the British groups at the time was the Beatles. In the 1960s, they released such hits as Please Please Me and Penny Lane. Other groups that had a great impact on the American culture were the Kinks and the Rolling Stones, with hit singles like Lola and I Can't Get No Satisfaction.
Especially with the British invasion, I feel that the youth really took hold of what they were bringing into America, and they were bringing in a whole new revolution almost of music, and it changed their whole way of life, and it changed everything that they would want to do, and it was a big deal.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Also, a lot of the musical genres of the era allowed children and teens to rebel against the state of minds and ideals of their parents.
Yeah, it really did.
Kind of formed the baby boomer generation.
Motown music also started in the 1960s with artists such as the Supremes and the Temptations. The black community finally got its voice on the radio. Not only that, but powerful female singers were making their debut. Motown Records released hits from the Temptations such as Ain't Too Proud to Beg and Get Ready.
Folk music in particular, it really took off because it was music with a message. And it had both parents and politicians saying, "What the folk is this?"
Question. James Bond reflected the American society in the 1960s, mainly because America was going on with this Cold War and everything, and James Bond was often seen fighting Russians in the Cold War era, like in their area, and he hated the Russians. He was all about getting them, which is what American society was about.
Movies in the decade revolved around the many social changes that were happening around the youth of the time. Many cultural values had come about and were focused on tremendously. Unfortunately, 1963 was the worst U.S. film production year in the past 50 years, and by the end of the 60s, both Hollywood and the film industry were struggling.
James Bond also influenced American society because it was like almost a new type of movie.
How so?
There were no real action movies before James Bond. It was really like intense, action-y type spy thrillers almost. And it was just something that hadn't been seen before.
In the summer months, most movies are like that today. It must have been very influential.
Broadway productions in the 1960s specifically leaned towards many musicals such as Hair, Funny Girl, and Camelot in the decade. Theater began to expand beyond just New York City, and in 1966, more actors were employed out of New York City than in it. Innovative ideas and new writers could get started on off-Broadway, where smaller shows began. Theater that proved to be popular were often later turned into movies like The Sound of Music.
Television shows in the 1960s really did help shape society because shows like Flintstones brought families together, and it was something that every part of the family could enjoy like all at once. There was enjoyment for the kids and humor for the kids, so that would really keep them entertained, as well as a lot of adult humor that would kind of fly over the kids' heads, and it would be really funny for the parents to watch with their kids.
Yeah, I think that's something that you see a lot in something carries over to modern TV today.
Yeah,
I guess if you think about shows like SpongeBob SquarePants, I don't know if any of us can forget the episode when SpongeBob had to take his driving test.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and Miss Pearl, she didn't want him to pass, and well, anyways, the hijinks ensue. But the point being that it's a show that can be enjoyable for both youths and their parents, which something that really originated with the Flintstones. I think you'd agree.
Yeah, definitely.
As the 60s drew on, television became a cultural force in America. Color TV was added during this time, and the number of households with TV sets dramatically increased. The amount of television stations also greatly increased. By 1969, 96% of all households had at least one television set in their house. News shows became popular along with cartoons such as the Flintstones, family sitcoms like The Andy Griffith Show, and the supernatural, much like The Twilight Zone, and The Addams Family. Literature in this time reflected the social and cultural issues of America. Issues including race and social distinctions were addressed in To Kill a Mockingbird, which is still considered a classic today. As feminism developed along with women in more important roles, books also used these issues as a core. The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan is a particularly popular piece of literature in the 1960s that led the way for women.
How many technological advances were made in the 1960s? Almost as many as there were hippies in the 1960s, right? Because there were a lot of hippies, and there were a lot of technological advances. A few important ones, probably the pacemaker, which a great medical advance that was made in the 60s, along with the internet, which, I don't know, we use a little bit, right? We use a lot.
Yeah, we do.
Very important. That was invented for military technology in the 1960s. And you remember the LED light. So anytime you use a laser pointer, kids, just remember that was invented in the 60s. And who could forget the portable calculator? So for all calculations,
The
Texas Instruments.
Yep. TI. You guys all use those, right? TI 89.
Yes, graphing.
84.
Graphing
Yeah.
calculator. So how else would you play Block Dude? Just kidding.
The first computer mouse was invented by Douglas Engelbart in 1964 in the U.S. military. This device became officially named the XY pointing device and was later patented in 1970. Also, the Internet was invented in 1969 by USARPA, which stands for Advanced Research Projects Agency. Therefore, the Internet was initially called ARPANET and connected only universities, scientists, engineers, and other experts at first. These computer advancements definitely paved the way for developments in sophisticated technology like Windows and Mac. In 1966, Texas Instruments invented a portable and miniature calculator that performed addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division with a total of 18 keys.